Well, good morning. Here we are at another animal storytelling. And we're going to be talking about turkeys and chickens today. So we haven't covered turkeys and chickens yet, so get ready. Here we go. The first story is called, aptly, Turkeys. Something about my mother attracts ornithologists. It all started years ago when a couple of them discovered she had a rare species of woodpecker coming to her bird feeder. They came in the house, sat around the window, exclaiming and taking pictures with big, fancy cameras. But long after the red-cocked woodpeckers had gone to roost, the ornithologists were still there. There always seemed to be 3 or 4 of them wandering around our place and staying for supper. In those days, during the 1950s, the big concern of ornithologists in our area was the wild turkey. They were rare, and the pure strain wild turkeys had begun to inbreed with farmers' domestic stock. The species was being degraded. It was extinction by dilution, and to the ornithologists, it was just as tragic as the more dramatic demise of the passenger pigeon or the Carolina parakeet. One ornithologist had devised a formula to compute the ratio of dominant and domestic pure strain wild turkey in an individual bird by comparing the angle of flight at takeoff and the rate of acceleration. And now, in those sad days, the turkeys were flying low and slow. It was during that time, the spring, when I was 6 years old, that I caught the measles. I had a high fever, and my mother was worried about me. She kept the house quiet and dark and crept around silently, trying different methods of cooling me down. Even the ornithologists stayed away, but not out of fear of the measles or respect for a household with sickness. The fact is, they had discovered a wild turkey nest. According to the formula, the hen was pure strain wild, not a taint of the sluggish domestic bird in her blood. And the ornithologists were camping in the woods, protecting her nest from predators and taking lots of pictures. One day our phone rang. It was one of the ornithologists. "Does your little girl still have the measles?" he asked. "Yes," said my mother. "She's very sick. Her temperature is 102. "I'll be right over," said the ornithologist. In 5 minutes, a whole carload of them arrived. They marched solemnly into the house, carrying a cardboard box. "102, did you say? Where is she?" they asked my mother. They crept into my room and set the box down on the bed. I was barely conscious, and when I opened my eyes, their worried faces hovering over me seemed to float out of the darkness like giant glowing eggs. They snatched the covers off me and felt me all over, and they consulted in whispers. "Feels just right, I'd say. At 102, can't we just tuck them up close to her as she lies still?" I closed my eyes then, and after a while, the ornithologist drifted away, their pale faces bobbing up and down on the black wave of my fever. The next morning, I was better. For the first time in days, I could think. The memory of the ornithologists, with their whispered voices, was like a dream from another life. But when I pulled down the covers, there, staring up at me with googly eyes and wide mouths, were 16 fuzzy baby turkeys, and the cracked chirps and caps of 16 brown speckled eggs. I was a sensible child. I gently stretched myself out, and the eggshells cracked, and the turkey babies fluttered and creeped and snuggled against me. I laid my aching head back on the pillow, and I closed my eyes. "The ornithologists," I whispered. "The ornithologists have been here." It seems the turkey hen had been so disturbed by the elaborate protective measures that had been undertaken on her behalf that she had abandoned her nest on the night the eggs were due to hatch. It was a cold night. The ornithologist, not having an incubator on hand, used their heads, and came up with the next best thing. The baby turkeys and I gained our strength together. And when I was finally able to get out of bed and feebly creep around the house, the turkeys peeped and cheeped around my ankles, scrambling to keep up with me and tripping over their own big spraddle-toed feet. When I went outside for the first time, the turkeys tumbled after me down the steps and scratched around in the yard while I sat in the sun. Finally, in late summer, the day came when they were ready to fly for the first time as adult birds. The ornithologists gathered. I ran down the hill and the turkeys ran too. Then one by one they took off. They flew high and fast, and the ornithologists made V's with their thumbs and forefingers, measuring the angles. They consulted their stopwatches and they paced off distances. They scribbled in their notebooks, and finally they looked at each other. They sighed. They smiled. They jumped up and down and hugged each other. 100% pure wild turkeys, they said. Nearly 40 years have passed since then. Now there's a vaccine for measles, and the woods where I live are full of pure wild turkeys. I like to think they are all descendants of those 16 birds I saved from the vigilance of the ornithologists. Well, that was reminiscent by someone named Bailey White. And it's funny how things happen. She saved those turkeys by just letting them rest against her while the eggs hatched. I don't know too many mothers that would have been happy to have baby turkey eggs and chicks in their bedroom, their child's bedroom, but this was a nature lover, so I think that that was what it took. So I'm going to follow this up by a story, has a title, The Woman Who Took Chickens Under Her Wing. Years may wrinkle the skin, but to give up enthusiasm wrinkles your soul. Minnie Bloomfield never lost her enthusiasm. She believed that with age comes courage, vision, and a true appreciation of life. All life. That's why at the age of 86, Minnie became the sole caretaker of a flock of chickens abandoned along a roadside in Southern California on one of the busiest freeways after a poultry truck mishap. For reasons known only to the bureaucracy of the day, the chickens were never rescued. Instead, they simply took up residence in the roadside brush, becoming known as the Hollywood Freeway Chickens. Like many seniors, Minnie lived alone and survived on a meager pension. But to her, life was precious and not to be callously surrendered or ignored, not even the lives of slaughter-bound livestock. Minnie simply saw creatures in need and without hesitation stepped right into action. For 9 years, while others sped past unaware and unconcerned, Minnie made 2 pilgrimages a day to provide food and water for the abandoned chickens, using what little money she had available. As the years passed, she worried about the day when she would no longer be able to care for the adopted flock. Who would look after these poor helpless creatures if she could no longer make the journey? At 95, just when the cruelties of time began to ravage Minnie's body, a heroine appeared. Jody Mann, a young actress and a founding member of the organization Actors and Others for Animals, was Minnie's neighbor. Jody had observed Minnie on the sojourns and noticed that the older woman also fed many of the homeless cats in the neighborhood. Jody approached Minnie to see if her neighbor could identify the owner of a stray dog that Jody had recently rescued. A quick and lasting friendship resulted. Learning of Minnie's concern for the fate of her flock, Jody vowed to fight City Hall and find the chickens a new home. Jody located a ranch where the chickens would be able to live out their natural lives, and she organized a rescue party to capture the birds. This was a daunting task that tested Jody's patience and determination, and Minnie's will to live. As the chickens settled into their new home, Minnie was forced to relocate to a convalescent hospital after a series of debilitating strokes. Jody maintained a close and loving relationship with Minnie, visiting her often. She found a good home for Minnie's cat, Blackie, and made sure that the stray cats that had come to depend on the older woman's kindness were still provided for and cared for. Later, as president of Actors and Others for Animals, I was honored to present Minnie Bloomfield, then 96 years old, with our organization's inaugural Humanitarian Award, inspired by and aptly named for Minnie. The award is a delicate bronze statue of a graceful straw-hatted woman with robust chickens standing sentry at her feet, and a dozing cat nestled safely in her arms. To all of us in attendance that day, the bizarre flight of the cast-off chickens, superimposed with Minnie's undaunted spirit, was awe-inspiring. Many were moved to tears by the soft heart of this frail but determined woman, who, with tears streaming down her own paralyzed face, managed to whisper, "Thank you." Minnie is gone now, but her concern for her fellow creatures lives on in the award that bears her name and likeness. Her courage and selfless example continues to be a source of inspiration and strength for me, for Jody, and for everyone within our organization, as we continue our work of caring for all living creatures who share our planet, our homes, and our heart. Thank you. That was a good one. I love those two stories. They're very sweet, very inspiring, and very happy in the end. So it doesn't matter what you do, as long as you care and you think about not only all the people around you, but the animals. So on this day, which is the first day that some of the yellow police tape has come down, I want to say I'm a very happy camper. We are starting to have a little more freedom, and we were starting to go around. But I trust that everybody is going to calmly go about whatever tasks they have to do, and always abide by the rules that are set down. So when you go out, wear your mask. And if you go into a store, make sure that you're wearing your mask, that you're standing at the right distance, and that you're conscientiously taking care of not only yourself, but everyone that you run into. It's a crazy day of lots of crazy occurrences, but we must stay strong, be positive, and we have to believe that better days are coming. Thanks so much for listening. It's my pleasure to do this for you all. Have a great day.